He built an empire so big no one dared question him. Until one cold night, a lonely bench in a forgotten park, a shivering child, and an old dog changed everything. What was a powerful man doing walking his dog past midnight? And why did a little girl with nothing shake the very core of a man who had everything? What he finds out next will break your heart, and might just heal his. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's jump into the story. Vincent Hale's mansion stood tall on the edge of the city like a lonely castle behind an iron gate. It had everything: glass walls, golden lights, and a view of the skyline that most people only dreamed of. But inside it was quiet. Too quiet. No voices, no laughter. Just Vincent. And the sound of his own footsteps echoing through the hallways. He walked slowly across the marble floors, dressed in a perfect gray suit, shoes shining like mirrors. Vincent was only 45, but his gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes made him seem older. He didn't smile much. People called him brilliant, ruthless, a man who always won. Tonight, like every night, Vincent had canceled dinner with the city mayor and skipped an award event. He preferred silence. Noise got in the way of thinking. And Vincent liked to think about deals, profits, deadlines. Feelings had no place in his calendar. "Toby," he said, calling softly. From the far end of the hallway came the gentle sound of paws. Toby, his loyal golden retriever, shuffled in with a slow wag of his tail. The old dog was the only living soul Vincent kept close. He knelt to rub behind Toby's ears, one of the rare times his face softened. "Just you and me again, buddy," Vincent whispered. The housekeeper, Mrs. Marla Jensen, was already gathering her things in the kitchen. She'd worked for Vincent for over a decade. She made sure everything was spotless and meals were always in the fridge. But he barely spoke to her. Tonight she left a plate of roast chicken and rice on the counter with a note. "Dinner's ready, just needs heating. Have a peaceful evening." "Thank you, Mrs. Jensen," Vincent said quietly. She turned in surprise. He rarely acknowledged her, but instead of commenting, she smiled gently and left. Toby nudged Vincent's leg. "Let's get some air," Vincent said. They walked outside, through the large steel gate that opened with a click, and into the chilly night. Vincent's estate sat not far from Briarfield Park. It wasn't a popular place anymore. People said it felt forgotten. Some lights didn't work and the benches were old. But Vincent liked it that way. No joggers, no children, just silence. The air was cold enough to bite. Vincent didn't flinch. His coat was thick wool, tailored in Italy. He didn't feel much. Not weather. Not much of anything, really. They reached the path that circled the lake. Vincent walked in silence, thinking about a property deal set to close the next morning. His mind was filled with numbers and deadlines. Toby walked ahead, nose twitching, ears alert. Suddenly the dog stopped. "Toby?" Vincent called. Toby didn't move. He stared toward a shadowy bench under a tall tree, tail wagging gently. Vincent squinted. There was someone, huddled on the bench. He stepped closer, his shoes crunching softly on gravel. A small figure lay curled up, using a backpack as a pillow. A child. "Hey," Vincent said, voice firm but not loud. "This isn't a shelter." The child stirred. She sat up quickly, pulling her thin coat tighter around her small frame. She looked about 8 or 9, hair messy, face smudged with dirt, but her eyes were wide, alert and polite. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady but small. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." Vincent blinked. He expected fear or attitude, but not this calm. "Where are your parents?" he asked, a frown forming. "It's late. My mom went to find work," she answered. "She told me to wait here." "When?" "5 days ago," she said quietly. Vincent stared, unsure if he had heard correctly. "5 days?" he repeated. She nodded, wrapping her arms tighter. around her knees. She said she'd be back that night, but she didn't come. Toby had already made his decision. He sat beside the girl, resting his head on her lap as if they were old friends. The girl smiled softly and rubbed his ears. "He doesn't usually like strangers," Vincent said, more to himself than to her. "Dogs like me," she replied simply. Vincent took a breath. "What's your name?" "Lena. Lena Brooke." "Vincent. Hale?" he replied slowly, unsure why he introduced himself at all. "Are you calling the police, Mr. Hale?" she asked suddenly, her eyes steady. That should have been his next move. Of course he should. This was not a business deal. This was a child possibly abandoned sleeping in a public park. But something in her voice, in her presence, made him hesitate. Vincent pulled out his phone. "I'm calling someone. They'll help." Lena nodded, her small shoulders sinking, not in fear, in acceptance. 15 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. Officer Jonah Wells stepped out, flashlight in hand. "Evening, Mr. Hale," he said. "Didn't expect to see you out here." "I found this girl alone," Vincent explained. "She says she's been here 5 days. Wells crouched beside the girl. "Lena Brooke, from the Community Meals Program?" She nodded, surprised he remembered. "Your mom was at our center last week," he said gently. "We've been looking for her." Wells sighed. "We'll have to take her to the emergency shelter tonight. Protocol." Vincent imagined the shelter, rows of cots, cold, linoleum floors, strange adults. He shook his head. "She can stay at my guest house," he said. Officer Wells blinked. "That's generous. And very unusual." Vincent looked down at Lena, then at Toby, who had laid back down by her feet. "One night," Vincent said. "Just until we figure this out." As they walked to the car, Lena stumbled. Vincent reached out without thinking. She took his hand without hesitation. And that simple moment, the touch of a tiny cold hand in his, cracked something in Vincent's well-guarded world. He didn't know it yet. But everything was about to change. The luxury car rolled slowly through the tall iron gates of Vincent Hale's estate. In the backseat, Lena sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, her backpack pressed tightly against her chest. Beside her, Toby, the gentle old dog, rested his head on her leg. It was the first time she had sat in a car that didn't smell like fast food or broken seat cushions. Vincent glanced at her through the rearview mirror. She wasn't crying, she wasn't talking either. Just silent, watching the road as though trying to remember every turn. "You'll stay in the guest house," he said as they reached the driveway. "It's separate from the main house. Warm. Safe. Just for tonight." Lena nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." He didn't know what to say after that. Vincent Hale was a man of contracts and deadlines, not conversations with lost children. As they stepped into the brightly lit guest house, Lena's eyes widened. It wasn't enormous like the main house, but it had soft lighting, clean furniture, and a couch bigger than any bed she'd ever slept in. "You can stay here tonight," Vincent said, awkwardly clearing his throat. "The guest bedroom is just down that hall." Lena stepped in carefully, like someone walking through a museum. "This is really nice," she said. "It doesn't smell like mold." Vincent blinked. "I should hope not." She looked up at him. "The last place did. The apartment we had before we had to leave." Something in her voice made Vincent's chest feel heavy. "I'll get you something to eat," he said, and turned toward the kitchen, suddenly desperate to do something, anything, besides talk. Inside his fridge, he found the dinner Mrs. Jensen had left for him. Roast chicken, rice, steamed vegetables. But it looked too adult, too formal. He wasn't sure what kids liked. Did they still eat chicken? He plated the food, warmed it, and set it on the small table in the guest house kitchen. Lena took the seat without fuss and began eating quietly, carefully, like someone used to making food last. "Is it okay?" he asked. "It's great," she said, a little shy. "It's warm." Vincent nodded. He stood for a moment before sitting down across from her, unsure what to do with his hands. "What grade are you in?" he tried. "When I go to school, I'm in third," she replied between bites. "But we move a lot, so I miss sometimes." "Do you like school?" "I like math," she said. "Numbers don't move around like people do." Vincent blinked again. He had loved math as a child too. Something about the order, the logic. Maybe that's where his love for business came from. "Smart choice," he said. Lena finished her food slowly, neatly, without asking for more. Vincent wanted to offer seconds, but didn't know how. Instead, he stood up. "There's a clean bathroom down the hall, fresh towels, you can shower if you'd like, I'll find a toothbrush." Lena nodded. "Thank you." When she emerged half an hour later, her hair was damp and her face looked fresh, scrubbed clean of city dust. She still wore the same clothes, but she looked smaller now, less like someone trying to be brave. Then, she surprised him. She walked up to him, arms at her sides, and said softly, "Thank you for helping me, Mr. Hale." Before he could reply, she wrapped her arms around his waist in a sudden, gentle hug. Vincent froze. No one had touched him like that in years. Not since he couldn't even remember. Slowly, awkwardly, he patted her shoulder. "You're welcome," he said, unsure if it sounded right. Lena yawned. "I'm tired." "Of course," he said, guiding her to the guest room. "You can sleep here. The bed should be warm." She nodded and curled up on the edge, still clutching her backpack like a shield. As Vincent closed the door halfway, Toby curled up on the floor beside her bed without needing to be told. Vincent stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the soft glow under the door. In his study, he poured himself a small glass of whiskey and sank into the leather chair behind his desk. His eyes wandered to the corner where her backpack had been placed. Something small had fallen from the side pocket, a notebook. He walked over and picked it up. It was filled with drawings and short notes. Crayon pictures of Lena and her mom, lists of what she hoped to be when she grew up. Nurse, teacher, baker, one page read. Tucked inside was a faded photo of a woman. Vincent Hale sat at his kitchen island the next morning, staring at the steam rising from his untouched coffee. His usually perfect hair was a little messy, and there were faint circles under his eyes. He had barely slept. His thoughts had been circling one thing, Lena. In the guest house, she was still asleep, curled up in the big bed like a kitten in a warm basket. Toby had refused to leave her side. "Mr. Hale?" came a surprised voice. He looked up to see Mrs. Jensen, the housekeeper, standing in the doorway, grocery bag in hand. She paused, clearly startled by the sight of him up so early and looking so human. "We have a guest," Vincent said, clearing his throat. "A young girl, just for a short while." Mrs. Jensen raised an eyebrow, but her voice remained calm. "I'll make breakfast." While Lena ate pancakes and fresh fruit in the sunny dining room, Vincent made 2 phone calls. First to Officer Jonah Wells. "Still no sign of Lena's mother," the officer said. "No one's filed a missing person report, but I'll keep digging." Then, a second call, to his assistant. "Clear my calendar today, Naomi," he said. "Family emergency." There was a long pause on the other end. "Sir? Did you just say family emergency?" "Yes," he said shortly. "That's what I said." He ended the call before she could ask questions. Later, Vincent sat, with Lena in his home office, trying to piece together what little they knew. "Do you know where your mom was working last?" he asked gently. "She cleaned houses, restaurants, sometimes hotels, but it wasn't regular," Lena replied. "She was looking at apartments the day she left." "Do you have any family nearby?" "No, just me and Mom," she said. "She always said we were all we needed." That answer hurt more than Vincent expected. By noon, he had reached out to someone he usually called only for business, Julia Markham, a private investigator, with a reputation for being fast and thorough. "Need you to find someone," Vincent told her. "Name's Elise Brooke, early 30s. Might have used different last names. Lives with a daughter, Lena." "Got it," Julia said. "You'll have something within the day." Vincent hesitated. "There's More. I think I may have known her, a long time ago, in college. Oh, Julia said, her voice softening slightly. That changes things. While Julia began her search, Vincent faced a new problem. What to do with a child who clearly didn't need babysitting but couldn't be left alone. I don't need watching, Lena told him later, flipping through a book in his library. I do most things by myself anyway. That's not how it's supposed to be, Vincent murmured, but she didn't hear him. His phone rang that afternoon. It was Julia. I found her, she said, voice urgent. She's at Northbridge Hospital, unconscious. Vincent stood up so fast the chair tipped back. What happened? Construction site accident, Julia explained. She was cleaning a site office, a shelf collapsed, head trauma, internal bleeding. She's been in a coma for 5 days. Vincent's heart dropped. Which site? East Harbor, one of yours. His stomach turned. The building was his. The company was his. The accident was his. Vincent didn't speak. Julia did. There's more, she said quietly. She applied for a job at your firm. Several times. Office positions, even janitorial. Got turned down every time. Vincent sat down hard. I need to see her, he said. An hour later, Vincent walked through the quiet halls of Northbridge Hospital. He was used to suits, boardrooms, glass towers, not the smell of antiseptic and the low beeping of machines. Room 217. He pushed the door open slowly. Elise lay motionless, pale against the white sheets. Her hair was darker than he remembered, streaked with gray. There was a bruise on her temple and a bandage on her arm. A monitor tracked her heartbeat, steady but quiet. Vincent stepped closer. It's me, he whispered. Vincent. No response. I found Lena, he said. His voice cracked. She waited at that park every night, just like you told her to. He sat down in the chair beside her, unsure what to do with his hands. She didn't cry, he continued, staring at her still face. She didn't complain. She said, you'd come back. His voice broke completely. You would have. I know that now. He sat there for over an hour, saying things he hadn't said to anyone in years. Apologies, regrets, quiet hopes. On the way home, the sky had turned gray. Vincent didn't notice. He walked into the guest house to find Lena sitting at the table, drawing with colored pencils. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Did you find her? She asked, almost afraid to speak. Vincent nodded. She's in the hospital, he said carefully. She got hurt at work, but the doctors are taking care of her. Lena looked down at her picture. Her lip trembled, but she didn't cry. She didn't leave me, she whispered. No, Vincent said gently. She didn't. Later, that night after Lena was asleep, he opened the notebook again. The photo of Elise looked different now, not just familiar, known. He whispered into the quiet room. How didn't I see it sooner? Because he hadn't been looking. But now everything was clear. Elise wasn't just Lena's mother. She might be his daughter's mother. And the man who once believed he didn't need anyone? He'd just found the people he couldn't live without. The winter sun peeked gently through the windows of Vincent Hale's living room. Outside, frost sparkled on the trees, turning the world into silver. Inside, Lena was sitting on the floor beside Toby, building a tower of blocks with careful hands. She didn't speak much that morning. Vincent knew why. He had promised to take her to see her mom. At the hospital, the white walls felt colder than ever. Vincent walked beside Lena down the hallway, her small hand in his. She held a drawing in her other hand, a picture of her, Toby, and her mom, standing in front of a house with a red roof and a sunny sky. When they reached the room, Lena paused. She might not wake up, right? She asked in a quiet voice. The doctors say she can hear us, Vincent said softly. Sometimes just hearing a loved one helps more than anything. Lena gave a small nod. Then she stepped inside. Elise lay in the same bed, wires gently beeping and monitors blinking steadily. She hadn't moved, but her face looked a little less pale, a little less tired. "Hi, Mom," Lena said, walking up to the bed. "It's me. I've been staying with Mr. Hale and Toby. He has a huge house, like really huge, and pancakes. We made cookies, too." She placed the drawing on the bedside table. Vincent watched from the doorway, heart heavy. He had no idea how a child could be so brave, so patient. Lena talked to her mother for nearly 15 minutes, telling stories, sharing details, whispering encouragement. On the drive home, Lena stared out the window. "She's going to wake up," she said suddenly. "I think she knows I'm there." "I think so too," Vincent replied. That night, as Lena slept, Vincent sat in his office with her notebook open in front of him. He had read it 3 times already, but his eyes kept going back to the journal. Entries in Elise's handwriting. One sentence stood out. "Sometimes I see him in her. The way she loves numbers. The way she argues when she's sure she's right." Vincent closed the notebook and leaned back in his chair. His chest felt tight. His thoughts wouldn't stop circling one truth. He had a daughter. The next morning, his phone rang. "Vincent," Julia Markham said, "I think you should come. To the hospital, something's changed." He was there in under 20 minutes. This time, Elise wasn't just lying still. Her eyes were open, half-lidded, unfocused, but open. Her head turned slightly when Vincent entered the room. "Elise," he said, moving to her side. "It's me." Her lips parted, dry and cracked. "Lena?" she whispered. "She's safe," Vincent said. "She's here, just down the hall. She's okay." Her eyes slowly focused on him, and recognition lit them like a spark. "Vincent?" she said weakly. He nodded. "It's been a long time." She blinked. "How did you find her?" He sat down, his voice thick. "Toby found her, in the park, on a bench, waiting for you." Tears filled her eyes. "I told her I'd be back," Elise whispered. "I didn't mean to leave her. I was going to see a landlord. Then work. I remember a crash. Then nothing." She waited. "For 5 days," Vincent said. She never gave up. A soft knock came at the door. A nurse peeked in, and behind her stood Lena, holding a small bouquet of hospital gift shop flowers. "Mom," she whispered. Elise's eyes widened. "Sweetheart." Lena ran to her mother's side and carefully climbed into the bed, gently hugging her. Vincent turned away, eyes burning. Later, Elise rested while Lena sat in a chair, beside her, drawing again. Vincent stood near the window. "You should tell her," Elise said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She deserves to know." "I will," Vincent replied, "when the time is right. I promise." That evening, back at the mansion, Vincent sat Lena down gently in the study. She looked up at him, puzzled. "Lena," he said, choosing each word with care, "there's something very important I want to share with you." She tilted her head. "What is it?" He hesitated. "Your mom and I, we knew each other, a long time ago, before you were born." Her eyes widened slightly. "You were friends?" He smiled sadly. "More than that. And now, I believe I'm your father." Lena blinked, confused, then thoughtful. "I kind of guessed," she said. Vincent's eyebrows rose. "You did?" She shrugged. "You look like me, and Toby really, really likes me." Vincent laughed, caught off guard by her logic. "That's some sharp detective work." Lena nodded seriously. "I'm good at puzzles." He reached out, his hand. "I'd like to be a part of your life, for real, not just for now." She looked at his hand, then smiled and took it. "Okay," she said. Weeks passed. Elise was moved to a private rehab clinic with Vincent covering every cost. Lena now attended a new school, had her own room, and finally got a warm winter coat that wasn't from a donation bin. Vincent didn't return to work full-time. He left early each day to pick Lena up and helped her with her homework in the evenings. The man who once only cared about profits now read bedtime stories and learned how to braid hair, badly, but with effort. On a quiet weekend afternoon, they returned to Briarfield Park. The bench where it all began still stood under the same tree. Vincent had it cleaned and repainted. A new plaque had been added. For the ones who wait in the dark. May they always find the light. Lena placed a small stuffed bear beneath it. It's for someone else who might be waiting, she said. Vincent looked at her, eyes full. You're something else, kid. I know, she said proudly. They walked home together, hand in hand. Toby, trotting ahead. And behind them, the bench stood quietly in the evening light, no longer just a place of sorrow, but a place of hope.